Good morning to you all from my garden here at Abbeygate House in St Albans. If this year had been a typical Holy Week and Easter, we would have spent much of it outside amidst crowds of people. I'm thinking, for example, of the Palm Sunday procession, where in towns and villages across our diocese, many of us would have been out on the streets following a donkey. Or the Good Friday open-air act of worship in many a marketplace. And here in St Albans, we would have had our 76th annual Easter Monday pilgrimage, when hundreds of people would have gathered together from every corner of the diocese to worship in the cathedral. But this year, none of these events took place. Instead, all of us have been confined to our homes. I, like you, have been spending the recent days behind locked doors. Well, closed or locked doors are one of the themes of today's Gospel reading. St. John tells us the doors of the house where the disciples met were locked for fear. Despite the fact that Mary Magdalene had seen Christ risen in the garden that first Easter Sunday, despite the fact that the other disciple, the one who'd run with Peter and had looked in and seen the empty tomb and were told he saw and believed, the other disciples couldn't begin to get their minds round the meaning of these events which were unfolding in front of their very eyes. And that's why they closed the doors and locked them, because they were afraid. And then we're told that suddenly Jesus comes and stands among them, and he speaks words to them. Peace be with you. In fact, 3 times in this reading, Jesus speaks those words to his disciples in their fear and panic. Peace be with you. I guess for most of us, peace conjures up ideas of lack of stress or anxiety. Perhaps it brings to mind the idea of lying on a Mediterranean beach under an umbrella, sipping a tequila sunrise. Or for others, peace is curling up in quiet in front of the television, or watching a film, or reading a good book. But this isn't what Jesus means by peace. For Jesus, peace is not primarily an absence of strife. Instead, it's something much richer. He's referring back to that lovely Hebrew word, shalom. Shalom is what we experience when we're in right relationship with God and in right relationship with our fellow human beings. And when Jesus says, shalom, peace be with you, he then shows them his wounds in his hands and in his feet. You see, this sort of peace comes from following the way of the cross. And we can experience when we too take up our cross and walk with Christ. The book of Revelation, the final book in the Bible, contains a lovely image of closed doors, which was captured in a very famous painting by the Victorian artist Holman Hunt called The Light of the World. Today it hangs in St. Paul's Cathedral. It's based on some verses in Revelation chapter 3, where Jesus says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice and open the door, then I will come into you and eat with you and you with me." In the painting, Jesus stands in the twilight at an old door which is firmly closed. In his left hand, he holds a lantern glowing in the darkness. With his right hand, he knocks on the locked door, wanting to come into those who are sheltering behind it, and he wants to share their lives. The painting has spoken to generations of people, but it had a huge impact at another time of national crisis, at the beginning of the Second World War. On Christmas Day in 1939, in his broadcast to the nation, King George VI referred to this well-known verse from Revelation 3 and also went on to read a poem. "Go out into the darkness and put your hand into the hand of God. That shall be better than light and safer than a known way. So I went forth, and finding the hand of God, trod gladly into the night. And he led me towards the hills and the breaking of day in the lone east." This Easter, wherever you find yourselves, whatever you are doing, I greet you in the name of our risen Lord. And I invite you to place your hand in his hand, the light of the world. May the peace of Easter be with you this year and always.